At the most sensitive moment of the global trade war, two important nodes on the Eurasian continent, namely Iran and the India-Pakistan region, have encountered troubles successively. Let's start with Iran. On the local time of the 26th, an explosion occurred at the port of Bandar Abbas in southern Iran. The Iranian Minister of the Interior stated that currently, 14 people have died in the explosion. Earlier, several Iranian media reported that the explosion had caused more than 750 people to be injured. As the rescue operation continues, the number of casualties is likely to rise further. It can be said that this explosion in Bandar Abbas, Iran, has not only blasted open the container terminal, but also the economic lifeline of Iran. The Shahid Rajai port, where the explosion took place, is one of the large-scale shipping bases in Iran and also one of the most important ports in the country. According to data from the official Iranian news agency IRNA, this port accounts for more than 55% of Iran's total non-oil goods import and export volume. In addition, the port undertakes more than 85% of Iran's container loading and unloading tasks. This explosion has directly paralyzed the import and export hub of Iran, with daily losses reaching hundreds of millions of US dollars. As for the cause of the explosion, it is still unclear at present. Some sources suggest that it may be due to the improper handling of a batch of solid fuel used for Iran's ballistic missiles. Currently, the official statement from Iran is that the explosion occurred in containers at the port that may have contained chemicals. However, it is extremely difficult to make an accurate and professional investigation and determination of the cause of the accident, and it will take some time. However, one point that deserves suspicion is why this explosion happened precisely at this sensitive moment of the Iran-US negotiations. On April 26th, the third round of Iran-US nuclear negotiations was launched in Oman. The two sides had just entered the stage of serious consultations. Iranian Foreign Minister Ali Bagheri Kani said that this negotiation was more in-depth than previous ones, and the explosion occurred in the afternoon on the first day of the negotiation. In such a situation, it is hard not to arouse speculation. After all, this is not without precedent. In 2020, the massive explosion at the port of Beirut in Lebanon happened just when the confrontation between Hezbollah and Israel was escalating and the precision strike negotiation process was ongoing. This incident also occurred at a sensitive juncture in Iran-US relations. Therefore, many Middle Eastern media have placed the blame on Israel, believing that it was the work of the Mossad. There are numerous forces in the Middle East, and their relationships are complex and intertwined. Mossad agents have a significant level of infiltration in this region, especially in Iran. Israel regards Iran as the greatest military threat in the Middle East and has been in a state of long-term military confrontation with Iran. In 2020, this port was subjected to a cyber attack by Israel. Moreover, the explosion site this time is close to the naval base of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. On the day when Iran activated the IR-6 centrifuge in 2021, its nuclear facilities were suddenly attacked by a cyber operation. The explosions at the Natanz nuclear facility in 2023 were also suspected to be the doing of the Mossad. And in 2024, the Iranian consulate in Syria was attacked. Therefore, it is not surprising that this explosion is considered to be the work of Israel, and the motivation is clear: to disrupt the Iran-US negotiation process, prevent the United States from lifting sanctions against Iran, force the United States to return to an adversarial route, and weaken Iran's influence in the region. On the other hand, the port explosion incident also has a huge impact on Iran itself. For a certain period of time, due to the paralysis of the port's functions, it will inevitably affect Iran's import and export trade, further increasing the risk of domestic economic and livelihood unrest. Some raw materials for aviation and military purposes have been damaged, which will somewhat weaken its military production capacity and military strength. The transportation channels for providing weapons and ammunition support to Hamas and the Houthi armed forces will be hindered. And due to the difficulty of the investigation, the explosion incident will fall into a political quagmire. The disputes among different factions within Iran regarding the final determination of this incident are bound to be extremely intense. If the opinions of the radical faction prevail and Israel is identified as the perpetrator, Iran may take retaliatory actions. Currently, countries such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have strengthened their defenses, and the US Fifth Fleet has entered a state of high alert. The Middle East may be caught in a cycle of retaliation, and even a local war may be ignited. In the gap between truth and falsehood, the Middle East is sliding towards an even more unpredictable abyss. At the same time, two neighboring countries of China, India and Pakistan have once again clashed, and the situation has deteriorated rapidly within just 3 days. The incident originated on April 22nd when a terrorist attack occurred in the Indian-controlled Kashmir region, where gunmen shot and killed tourists, resulting in 26 deaths. An organization called the Resistance Front claimed responsibility for the attack. The Resistance Front is a branch of the terrorist organization Jaish-e-Mohammed. India has always accused the Pakistani government of being the behind-the-scenes supporter of Jaish-e-Mohammed. Subsequently, India targeted Pakistan. After the shooting incident, the armed forces of India and Pakistan exchanged fire at the border. Moreover, India announced 3 major retaliatory measures against Pakistan. First, close the border ports between the two countries and suspend the issuance of visas to Pakistanis. Pakistanis who have already entered India must leave before May 1st. This measure is equivalent to interrupting people-to-people and economic and trade exchanges. Second, expel the Pakistani military attaché in New Delhi, and India will also recall its military attaché in Islamabad, which means interrupting military exchanges at the official level. Third, cut off Pakistan's water supply. In fact, the first 2 measures do not cause much harm to Pakistan. After all, the two countries have been in a state of long-term hostility, and conflicts, both large and small, have never ceased. Whether it is civil exchanges or official communication, they are almost negligible. However, among these measures, the most powerful one is cutting off the water supply. There are several rivers between India and Pakistan, and India is located upstream and has built dams. As long as India wants to cut off Pakistan's water supply, it can close the sluice gates and divert the river to the arid areas within its own territory. This move by India is extremely lethal because if there is a water shortage for a long time, the entire society may collapse. In response, Pakistan issued a statement saying that India's move to terminate the Indus Waters Treaty violates international consensus and is a premeditated water resources war against Pakistan. It should be noted that since the signing of the Indus Waters Treaty in 1960, India and Pakistan have gone through numerous wars and conflicts, yet none of these have affected the treaty's continuation. Therefore, it is regarded as the last line of defense in the relationship between India and Pakistan. India, which occupies the upstream area of the waterways, has generally adhered to the requirements of the treaty, ensuring that Pakistan can obtain the water resources necessary for power generation and irrigation. However, over the past decade, India has repeatedly threatened to cut off Pakistan's water supply. After India announced the suspension of the treaty's implementation this time, in the short term, it is likely to obstruct Pakistan's normal needs for water conservancy, power generation, and agricultural irrigation by storing water during the dry season. In the long term, it may divert Pakistan's water resources through the construction of water diversion projects. Approximately 70% of Pakistan's agricultural irrigation and domestic water supply rely on these rivers, and agriculture is a crucial part of Pakistan's economy and rural livelihoods. India's sudden interruption of the water supply is highly likely to have catastrophic consequences for Pakistan's food production, drinking water security, and economic stability. A Pakistan facing a water cutoff will encounter a significant reduction in wheat and cotton production. It is estimated that about 23 million people may face a food crisis. Pakistan's pillar textile industry will also face the problem of raw material shortages, potentially resulting in a loss of billions of US dollars in foreign exchange within a month. Since the United States started raising interest rates in 2022, Pakistan's economy has been in a very poor state. Its GDP growth was 0 in 2023, and the final data for 2024 has not been released yet, but it is generally believed to have performed poorly. Behind the poor economic situation are 2 major crises. The first is the electricity crisis. Pakistan's power grid is outdated, and the government lacks the funds for renewal and maintenance. Power outages have become increasingly frequent. In January 2023, Pakistan experienced an unprecedented nationwide blackout, affecting a population of 220 million. Major cities such as Lahore, Karachi, and Islamabad once completely lost their power supply. In 2024, although there was no nationwide blackout again, there was still many large-scale regional power outages, averaging about 30 times a month. To save electricity, the Pakistani government has repeatedly called on shops to close before 8 p.m. The second is the foreign exchange crisis. After the United States raised interest rates, a large amount of foreign capital fled, causing Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves to drop below $10 billion at one point. The subsequent shortage of foreign exchange has brought about many problems. For example, Pakistan's industry is not strong, and many goods cannot be produced domestically and need to be imported. With insufficient foreign exchange, imports have become more expensive, leading to a continuous rise in inflation. In 2024, Pakistan's inflation rate once reached 22% and has only recently decreased. Obviously, after India cut off the water supply, Pakistan's economy will be further worsened. Pakistan has stated that it will respond with equivalent counterattacks to any hostile actions by India. At the same time, Pakistan issued a statement saying that India, without any reliable investigation and verifiable evidence, is attempting to link the attack to Pakistan with the aim of diverting public attention and evading responsibility for the out-of-control management in the Indian-administered Kashmir region. The Kashmir issue mentioned by Pakistan has a long history and is a historical legacy resulting from the partition of India and Pakistan. According to the partition plan, the princely states on the Indian subcontinent could choose to join either the newly established India or Pakistan after the partition. The majority of the population in the Kashmir region are Muslims, but the rulers of the princely states are Hindus. On October 26, 1947, the ruler of the Kashmir region signed an agreement consenting to join India and requesting Indian troops to protect the people of Kashmir. However, this agreement did not bring peace to the Kashmir region. Instead, it has kept this area constantly filled with war and division, which has not subsided to this day. India believes that this is a legally valid document and represents the transfer of power by the supreme ruler of Kashmir. But Pakistan questions the validity of this document because many areas in Kashmir had already achieved self-governance and declared their accession to Pakistan before the Singh Agreement. As a result, India controls a part of the region, and Pakistan controls the other part. The dispute between the two sides has persisted for more than 70 years, keeping Kashmir on the verge of conflict. Any minor change in the diplomatic relations between the two countries can turn this region into a tense front line. During this period, the two sides have erupted into wars several times, causing the situation in the Kashmir region to remain volatile. However, since both sides possess nuclear weapons, large-scale military conflicts have not occurred again. In fact, although the conflicts between India and Pakistan over the years have seemed intense, both sides have always tacitly stopped short of full-scale confrontation. This is mainly to give an account to public opinion at home, and they will not actually engage in a full-scale war. The underlying reason is that both countries have nuclear weapons and are aware of the catastrophic consequences of the conflict getting out of control. Therefore, this turmoil is likely to end with a technical compromise. The result will probably be that both sides express their dissatisfaction, display an opposing stance, and then it will be over. However, the above is just a judgment based on normal circumstances. The current international order is in a state of great chaos, and various forces are eager to act, constantly exerting influence behind the scenes. It is uncertain whether India and Pakistan will be drawn into a full-scale war or even a nuclear war. Although the probability is very small, it cannot be completely ruled out.